Okay, here's lesson 10.7, operations with scientific notation. As we're doing operations, meaning adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing, we're going to start with adding and subtracting. To add or subtract, we have to think of the concept of like adding like terms. And in order for numbers in scientific notation to be like terms, they have to have the same power of 10. When that's the case, we can simply just add the decimal part of the number. So think of it like when you used to have things like, 2x plus 3x equals 5x. We could do that because they were like terms, right? 2y squared plus 3y squared is equal to 5y squared. So the concept was it had to be the same variable or the same, in this case it's like a base, and the same exponent in order for them to be like terms. Well, that's the same way with scientific notation. You want it to be the same power of 10 in order to be able to then add the decimal part of it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first example from the textbook. This has finding the sum or difference, writing your answer in scientific notation. So in A, we can see that they both are a scientific notation to the power of 10 cubed, 10 to the third power. So we could group together the 4.6 and the 8.72 and add them together. Now, this is where it starts to get tricky, because remember what we learned about in scientific notation? The decimal number has to be greater than 1 but less than 10. And since 13.32 is greater than 10, we have to change 13.2 into 1.332 times 10 to the first power, and then that will be times 10 to the third power, and now we can add the 1 and the 3 to get our final answer right here, okay? When they are not in the same power, one way is to change one of the decimal numbers so that it's in the wrong, scientific notation form to get the power the same. Another way would be to take it and write it outside of scientific notation. So the 3.5, remember, would be 1, 2, so that would be a 0.035. The 6.6 becomes 1, 2, 3. So we have, line up your decimals, 0, 0, 6, 6, and then of course if you remember decimal subtraction, you could do it like this and then put your answer back in, and that's probably what I would recommend happening. Or you can kind of look closer at this to see how they've rewritten and changed this other one to be in the same, let's see, how does that work? We broke it up in a way to be in the same negative, 10 to the negative 2 power, so that they would have a like term. So we see how we took the 6.6 and kind of moved it around the decimal to get that to happen. So one of two ways. All right, so let's keep moving forward. I promise on the homework, though, I'll give you like terms for the adding and subtracting. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to get it, too crazy for you. So for the first one, again, since they're not like terms, I'm going to recommend you put them in 8.2, and then since it's a positive, we're going to go to the right. So we have the number 820, right, because we have to fill that in. And then for 3.41, we have to go to the left, and that becomes, right, because the decimal would be here, and we'll line up the decimals, 3, 4, 1, so you fill in with zeros here, and when you add, you get 820.341, and then to put it back in scientific notation. So here's the reason why, moving the decimal to get something in scientific notation would be better, but here we'd go back 1, 2, so we'd have 8.2 2.20341 times, and then we'll have 10 cubed. Okay, sorry, that's so slanty. All right, next one. They are the same power of 10. So we can take our 7.8 and subtract our 4.5. Okay, so we'll get 3.3, and then we get to keep the power of 10. So there's our answer. So that's going to be more similar to what you're going to do. You'll either be adding or subtracting the decimal part depending on what's going on between the signs, okay? So we won't have to worry about 1 as much for homework tonight. I'm not going to make it too crazy on you. So 7.8 minus the 4.5. The only thing you may have to do is put it into the right shape. Remember, this first decimal number has to be greater than 1 but less than 10. Okay, moving on to multiplying or dividing. I like these the best because we don't have to worry about the power of 10 because we already learned the exponent rules, and we can multiply if the base is the same, and they're all powers of 10, right? And we can divide when the base is the same, so we can either add or subtract our exponents how we need to. So to multiply them, you simply multiply the decimal part of the number together. So this 3 times this 5, right, becomes 15. And then you get to do this. It's kind of like you rearranged it. They use commutative property, but then we have 10 to the 5th times 10 to the, oh, these are negatives. I guess they're not showing up right here. And so that'll be and we'll take the -5 plus the -2 to get the -7. Now, we have to come down here, right, or right there actually, and we have to change 15 is equal to 1.5 times 10 to the 1st, right? Because we moved the decimal from 15 back 1 place. So that's where you get this part right here. And so then when you have this 1 plus -7, your final answer is the -6. So that gets a little tricky too sometimes, but just take your time with it, and I'll give you maybe an extra check on big ideas today. Okay, so dividing, same concept. We get to divide the, oops, darn it. I sometimes forget to put it's been a while since I've done a video recording. Can you guys tell? Let's see. Kind of out of my video vibe here. All right, so we have to divide the powers of 10. And then remember, the rule is the quotient power, we subtract -8 minus the 7, right? So we had a +7 down there. So then we get the -15. Now, again, 0.25 can be written as 2.5 times 10 to the -1, and then take that times that. So now we have a -1 plus a -15, and there's our final answer. So we'll work through a couple of these as well. So here we go. So in the first one, we have the 6, which is like to the 10 to the power of 0, right? We don't even have a power of 10 for that first number. So we'll take the decimal part, 6 times the 8, and then that whole thing will be, times the 10 to the -5. So we're going to get 48 times 10 to the -5. But 48 can be written as 4.8, remember you'd have to go back 1, times 10 to the 1st power, times 10 to this -5 power. So we will add the 1 and the -5, and we'll get 4.8 times 10 to the -4 power. Okay, let's move over here to number 4. We will group together and multiply the 7 times the 3, and then we'll take that and we get to multiply the powers of 10 together too. So in that case, we can add the exponents. So 7 times 3 is 21 times 2 plus 5 is 7. But 21 can be written as 2.1 times 10 to the 1st power. And then we have this times 10 to the 7th. So now we're going to have 2.1 times 10 to the 8th power. Okay? Dividing, since 4.6 doesn't have a power of 10, we're going to take 9.2 divided by 4.6. And this is where I'm going to get my calculator out. 9.2 divided by 4.6, and that will be equal to 2. So that is equal to 2 times 10 to the 12th power, because since there was no power of 10, to divide the powers of 10 or subtract the exponents, it just keep the other one. All right. Actually, maybe it would be better for you guys to go ahead and get in the practice of using that, because, you know, this works great because 12 minus 0 is 12. But what if we had done it reversed and gotten, you know, a different thing? That would have been a different answer altogether. So here, remember the first, because this is not, so division's not commutative. So the first number, 1.5, has to be divided by the 7.5. And then you're going to take that and you're going to do times, and you have 10 to the negative 3 over 10 squared. So 1.5 divided by 7.5 is equal to a decimal point 2, okay, which can be written as, because we have to move this over, right, and it's going to be 2 times 10 to the negative 1. And then we're going to take that times, what do we get here? We get 10 to the negative 3 minus 2. So times 10 to the negative 5. And so we get this negative 1 plus this negative 5. I'm going to go all the way up here, and we'll say 2 times 10 to the negative 6. And we're just going to stop there. I don't know if you had any more word problems or not, but we're just going to end it right there. It's about a long enough video, and I rambled on enough. So hope you're all doing well.